There are moments in life that define you. Moments where you realize that everything you believed about yourself, about your family, about your place in the world, it's all been a lie. For me, that moment came on Thanksgiving Day, in front of 30 relatives, when my parents gave my brother the only remaining seat at the table and left me standing there like I was invisible. My name is Daniel Morgan, and this is the story of how one holiday dinner shattered 23 years of carefully constructed lies. It started like every other Thanksgiving. I drove from Boston to my parents' house in suburban Connecticut, the same route I'd been taking since I went away to college 5 years ago. The autumn leaves were perfect that year, brilliant reds and golds lining the highway. Everything looked beautiful on the surface, just like my family always did. My parents, Richard and Margaret Morgan, lived in a colonial house that could have been featured in a magazine. 4 bedrooms, immaculate landscaping, a dining room that seated 20. They'd worked hard to build this life, dad as an accountant, mom as a real estate agent. They were pillars of the community, TA presidents, church volunteers, the couple everyone admired, and they had 2 sons, my older brother Kyle, 25, and me, 23. Kyle was everything parents dream of. Star athlete in high school, business degree from a prestigious university, engaged to a doctor, working at a Fortune 500 company. He was the golden child, the one they showed off at every opportunity. And then there was me. I'd always been different. Quieter, more introspective. I loved books and poetry and long walks. I'd chosen to study social work instead of business. I worked at a nonprofit helping at-risk youth, making barely enough to pay rent on my tiny studio apartment. I wasn't the son they bragged about at cocktail parties, but I thought they loved me anyway. I really believed that. I pulled up to the house around 2 in the afternoon. Cars already lined the driveway. My aunts and uncles, cousins, my mother's parents. The whole extended Morgan clan gathered together like we did every year. Kyle's BMW was parked prominently near the front door. Of course, it was... I grabbed the pie ID bought from the bakery ID learned years ago not to try to make anything homemade, as Mom would just critique it and walked up to the door. Mom answered, wearing the apron over an elegant dress, her hair perfectly styled. She looked at me, and I saw that familiar flicker of disappointment cross her face. It was so quick, most people wouldn't notice. But I'd learned to read that expression over 23 years. Daniel, you're late? I checked my watch. I'm 10 minutes early. Actually, Kyle's been here for an hour, helping set up. The comparison was implied but clear. Sorry, traffic was just come in. Everyone's already here. I walked into the house, the warmth and noise of family gathering washing over me. My cousins were playing in the living room, uncles were watching football, aunts were in the kitchen helping with final preparations, and there was Kyle holding court in the dining room, showing off his engagement ring to a cluster of admiring relatives. His fiancée, Mandy, stood beside him looking perfect in a designer outfit. Dunny! My grandmother's voice cut through the noise. Grandma Rose, my father's mother, was 82 and sharp as ever. She sat in her usual chair by the fireplace, waving me over. I went to her, grateful for the genuine warmth in her smile. Hi, Grandma! I bent down to hug her. She held me tight, then pulled back to look at my face. You look tired, sweetheart. They're working you too hard at that job. Maybe a little... But it's good work. Important work. I know it is. She patted my hand. Your grandfather would have been proud of you. He always said the measure of a man is how he treats those who can do nothing for him. I smiled. Grandpa had died when I was 15, but I still missed him. He'd been the one person who'd always seemed to truly see me. Grandma, can I ask you something? The question came out before I could stop it. Do you think... Do you think there's something wrong with me? Her eyes sharpened. What kind of question is that? I just thought, I've always felt like I don't quite fit, like I'm missing some piece that would make me belong here. Grandma Rose opened her mouth to respond, but my mother's voice interrupted. Daniel, stop monopolizing your grandmother. Other people want to visit with her too. I stood up, chastised like a child, and moved away. The next hour was a blur of awkward conversations with relatives who did not quite know what to say to me. They asked about Kyle's engagement, Kyle's job, Kyle's new car. When they turned to me, the questions were polite but perfunctory. Still working at that... what was it? Youth center. How's the apartment? Still in that neighborhood, meeting anyone special? No. Well, plenty of time. The subtext was clear. When are you going to get your act together like your brother? Finally, Mom announced that dinner was ready. Everyone moved toward the dining room where a magnificent spread was laid out. Turkey, stuffing, 3 kinds of potatoes, vegetables, cranberry sauce, rolls. Mom had outdone herself, as always. The table was set for 20 people. Extended family began finding their seats, shuffling around, laughing and chatting. I stood back, waiting for the crowd to thin so I could see where I was supposed to sit. Kyle and Amana took seats near the head of the table, next to my parents. Of course, the honored positions, my aunts and uncles filled in the sides. Cousins squeezed in where they could. Grandma Rose was seated in a comfortable chair at the opposite end from my father, where she could see everyone. The seats filled up one by one. I watched, waiting for my spot, and then I realized there was one chair left, one single chair right next to Kyle. I started to move toward it, but my mother's hand stopped me. Daniel, wait. I looked at her, confused. What's wrong? That seat is for Kyle. He needs the extra space for his laptop. He has to join a conference call during dinner. Work emergency. I stared at her. But ... where do I sit? We'll bring in a folding chair in a minute. Just wait in the kitchen. The conversations around the table had started to die down. People were noticing Margaret. My Uncle Tom said, "There's a seat right there. Daniel can sit." "That's Kyle's seat," my mother said firmly, "for his work things." "But there's no other chair at the table," Aunt Linda pointed out. My father spoke up, his voice carrying authority. "We'll get Daniel situated. Everyone just start passing the food around." Kyle sat there in his seat, silent, not offering to give it up, not suggesting he could take the folding chair, just sitting there looking uncomfortable but not uncomfortable enough to do anything about it. I stood there in front of 30 relatives, no seat at the table, being told to wait in the kitchen like I was a servant rather than a member of the family. The humiliation was crushing. I felt my face burning, my throat tightening. "It's fine," I managed to say. "I'll just wait." "No." Grandma Rose's voice cut through the room like a knife. "It's not fine." She stood up slowly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. At 82, she still commanded attention when she wanted it. "Margaret Richard," she looked at my parents with an expression I'd never seen before. Anger. Deep, cold anger. "This has gone on long enough." "Mom," my father started. "Don't you mom me, Richard. I have watched you and Margaret treat this boy like he's second class for 23 years. And I have kept my mouth shut because you asked me to. Begged me to. But I will not sit here and watch you humiliate him in front of the entire family anymore." The room went completely silent. Even the cousins stopped fidgeting. "Mom, this isn't the time," my father said, his voice strained. "Then when is the time Grandma Hosey demanded? When is the time to tell Daniel the truth? When he's 30? 40? When you've destroyed any chance of him ever trusting anyone again?" My heart was pounding. "What truth? Grandma, what are you talking about?" She looked at me, and I saw tears in her eyes. "Oh, sweetheart, you should have been told years ago. You deserve to know." "Know what?" My voice was rising now. "Someone tell me what's going on." My mother had gone pale. My father was gripping the edge of the table so hard his knuckles were white. Kyle looked like he wanted to disappear. Grandma Rose took a deep breath. "Daniel, honey, there's a reason you've always felt like you don't quite fit in this family." She paused, and in that pause, I felt my entire world shifting. "You're not Richard and Margaret's biological son. You were adopted when you were 2 days old." The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually staggered backward. "What? You're adopted?" Grandma Rose repeated, her voice gentler now. "Richard and Margaret couldn't have children after Kyle was born. Complications during his birth. They wanted another child, so they adopted you." I looked at my parents. "Is this true?" My mother's face was a mask of fury and fear. "Mother Rose, you had no right." "Is it true?" I shouted. My father finally met my eyes. "Yes, it's true." The room erupted. Relatives talking over each other, some shocked, some apparently having suspected, others demanding explanations. But all I could hear was the roaring in my ears as everything I'd ever known about myself crumbled to dust. I was adopted, and they'd never told me. For 23 years, I'd lived a lie. I stood there in my parents' dining room surrounded by family, completely alone. The word adopted echoed in my head, drowning out the chaos of voices around me. Everyone needs to calm down, my father said, trying to regain control. This is a private family matter. Private. Uncle Tom stood up. Richard, we're family. We had a right to know. Hell, Daniel had a right to know. That wasn't your decision to make. My mother's voice was shrill now, all her perfect composure shattered. Mother Rose, how could you do this? You promised. You promised you'd never tell. Grandma Rose lowered herself back into a chair, looking tired but resolute. I promised I'd let you tell him when you were ready, but you were never going to be ready, were you? You were going to let that boy live his whole life thinking he was less than Kyle when the only difference is blood. That's not fair, my mother protested. We love Daniel. Do you? I found my voice finally. It came out rough, broken. Do you really? Because for 23 years, you've treated me like I'm defective somehow. Like I'm never quite good enough. Was it because I wasn't really yours? Don't be dramatic, my father said. We raised you. We provided for you. We gave you the same opportunities as Kyle, the same. I laughed, but it sounded hysterical. The same? Kyle got the bigger bedroom. Kyle got the car for his 16th birthday while I got bus passes. Kyle's college was fully paid while I had to take loans. Kyle gets praised for breathing while I get criticized for everything I do. That's not the same, Dad. That's not even close. Kyle finally spoke up, his voice quiet. Danny, I didn't know, I swear, I didn't know you were adopted. I looked at my brother, the person I'd grown up with, competed with, envied, loved. How could you not see how differently they treated us? I thought, ... double quotes, Kyle trailed off. I thought they were just harder on you because you were younger or because you were different. I didn't know why. But you benefited from it, I said. You took every advantage, every bit of extra attention, every opportunity they gave you that they didn't give me. That's not fair. None of this is fair. I was shouting now. I spent my whole life trying to earn their love, trying to figure out what was wrong with me, why I could never measure up. And the whole time it was because I wasn't really their son. Aunt Linda approached me carefully. Daniel, honey, being adopted doesn't make you less their son, doesn't it? I gestured wildly at the table. There's Kyle with his seat, his space, his importance. And where's my seat? Oh, right. I was told to wait in the kitchen like I don't belong at the family table. Because I don't, do I? I never did. Grandma Rice spoke again, her voice firm. Richard, Margaret, tell him the rest. If we're doing this, do it properly. Tell him about his birth parents. My mother looked panicked. Mother? No, my birth parents. I turned to them. You know who they are? You know where I came from. My father sighed heavily. A man who'd been cornered. Yes, we know. Tell me. It wasn't a request. He looked at my mother, who shook her head almost imperceptibly, but the secret was out. There was no putting it back. Your birth mother's name was Jennifer Hayes, my father said. She was 19 when she got pregnant. A college student. The father was her boyfriend at the time, Michaelis. They were young, not ready for a child. So they gave me up. The words tasted bitter. They made an adoption plan, my father corrected, through a private agency. We were matched with them because they wanted their son to go to a good family, a stable home. Do they know about me? Do they ever think about me? My mother's voice was cold. The adoption was closed. No contact. That was the agreement. Did they want it closed? Or did you... Silence. We thought it was better, my father finally said. Clean break. No confusion about who your real parents were. My real parents, I repeated. You mean the people who actually wanted me? We wanted you, my mother insisted. We wanted a second child. We went through months of applications and home studies and waiting. We chose you, Daniel. But you never loved me like you loved Kyle. You never treated me like I was really yours. My mother's face crumpled slightly. That's not true. We tried. You tried. The words exploded out of me. You tried. What does that mean? You tried to love me but couldn't quite manage it. You tried to treat me equally, but I just wasn't worth the effort. Don't twist my words, then untwist them for me. I demanded. Explain to me why my entire childhood was spent feeling like I was on the outside looking in. Explain why you gave Kyle everything and me crumbs. Explain why, right now, today, you gave him the only seat and told me to wait in the kitchen. Kyle stood up suddenly. This is insane. Mom, Dad, Danny's right. You have treated him differently. I always thought it was just your personalities clashing or something, but now, Jesus, now it makes sense. He looked at me. I'm sorry. I should have noticed. I should have said something. You benefited too much from their favoritism to say anything, I said, and Kyle flinched. Grandma Rose's voice cut through again. There's more to the story, Daniel. Things your parents don't want you to know. Mother, please. My father started. No, Richard. He deserves all of it. She looked at me. Your birth mother, Jennifer, she didn't just give you up and disappear. She tried to maintain contact. She wanted updates, photos. The agency told her it was a closed adoption, but she kept trying. For years, my heart was racing. What do you mean, for years? She wrote letters, Grandma Rose said. Sent them through the agency, birthday cards, Christmas cards, asking about you, hoping you were happy. The agency forwarded them to your parents? I turned to my mother and father. You've got letters from my birth mother. We were advised not to respond, my mother said defensively. The social worker said it would only make it harder for everyone. Where are they? I demanded. Where are the letters? We threw them away, my father said. We thought it was for the best. You threw them away. I felt like I couldn't breathe. You threw away letters from my birth mother. Letters that were meant for me. You were a child, my mother said. You didn't need that confusion in your life. That wasn't your decision to make. I was shaken now. Those letters were mine. She was trying to reach me, and you blocked her. You erased her from my life completely. Aunt Linda spoke up. Margaret Richard, how could you do that? That poor girl was trying to know if her child was okay. She gave up her rights. My mother snapped. She chose adoption. She had no legal claim to contact. Legal claim. I stared at her. She was my mother. My birth mother. She carried me for 9 months and then gave me up because she thought I'd have a better life with you. And you repaid her by throwing away her letters and lying to me about her existence. Grandma Rose continued, relentless now. The letters stopped coming when you were about 7. Your birth mother had one more baby, a daughter on. She moved on with her life. But she tried, Daniel, she tried to be part of yours. I had a sister, a half-sister somewhere in the world. Another piece of information that had been kept from me. Does she still live nearby? I asked. Jennifer Hayes. Is she still in Connecticut? We don't know, my father said. We stopped tracking her years ago. But you did track her. I shook my head in disbelief. You tracked my birth mother, but you threw away her letters. You knew where she was, but you never told me. We were protecting you, my mother said, but her voice lacked conviction now. Protecting me from what? From knowing where I came from having a connection to my biological family, from understanding why I never felt like I belonged with you. Uncle Tom stood up again. I think Daniel needs some space. Maybe some of us should give them privacy to work this out. No, I said sharply. No, I want everyone to stay. I want witnesses to this. I want everyone to know the truth about Richard and Margaret Morgan, the perfect couple who adopted a baby and then spent 23 years punishing him for not being their biological son. That is not what happened. My father said, his voice rising. We loved you. We did our best. Your best sucked, I said flatly. Your best left me damaged and doubting myself every single day. Your best made me feel like I was fundamentally broken. And all along, you knew exactly why I felt that way, and you let me suffer anyway. Kyle was crying now. Actually crying. Danny, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. If I'd known what? I turned on him. What would you have done? Given up some of your privileges. Shared the spotlight. Told them to treat me better. Yes, Kyle said fiercely. Yes, I would have. You're my brother. You've always been my brother. None of this changes that, doesn't it? I asked. Because we're not really brothers. Are we? We're not blood. I am just the kid your parents adopted because they couldn't have another one of their own. Stop it, Kyle said. Stop trying to make me your enemy. Not... Mom and Dad are the ones who messed up here. Not me. He was right, but I was too angry, too hurt to admit it. Grandma Rose struggled to her feet again. Daniel, come with me. We need to talk privately. I don't want to talk. Come with me, she repeated firmly. There are things I need to tell you, things I couldn't say in front of everyone. Something in her tone made me follow her. We went to my father's study, away from the chaos of the dining room. She closed the door and turned to face me. Your grandfather knew, she said without preamble. When Richard and Margaret adopted you, your grandfather and I both knew. We were there at the hospital when they brought you home. Kay said, not understanding why this mattered. Your grandfather fell in love with you immediately, Grandma Rose continued. He said you had old eyes, that you looked at the world like you understood more than an infant should. He was besotted with you from day one. Tears pricked my eyes at the mention of Grandpa. But he saw what I saw, Grandma Rose said. He saw that Margaret was struggling, that she loved Kyle fiercely but couldn't quite bond with you the same way. He talked to her about it, tried to help, but she was dealing with grief over her inability to have more biological children, and she was taking it out on you, without even realizing it. That's not an excuse, I said. No, it's not. It's an explanation. Your grandfather wanted to tell you the truth when you were old enough to understand. He thought you deserved to know, especially once it became clear how differently they were treating you. But Richard and Margaret begged us not to. They said they'd tell you themselves when the time was right. And Grandpa agreed, reluctantly. He made them promise. And then he died. And that promise died with him. I've been waiting for them to keep their word for 8 years. Why did you tell me today? I asked. Why now? Because watching them give Kyle that seat while leaving you standing there, ... double. Quotes Grandma Rose's voice broke. That was the last straw. I saw your face, Daniel. I saw you accepting that humiliation, like you deserved it, like you'd been trained your whole life to accept less than. And I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't let you go on believing there was something wrong with you, when the only thing wrong was the way they treated you. I sank into one of the leather chairs, all the fight draining out of me. What do I do now, Grandma? How do I move forward from this? You find out who you really are, she said simply. Not who Richard and Margaret wanted you to be. Not the son who didn't quite measure up. But who Daniel really is. Where he comes from. What his story is. I want to find her, I said suddenly. Jennifer Hayes. My birth mother. I want to know her. Grandma Rose nodded. I thought you might, and I'm going to help you. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I kept one of the letters, just one. Your mother gave them to me to throw away, but I couldn't do it. I kept this one, thinking maybe someday you'd need it. With shaking hands, I unfolded the paper. The handwriting was feminine, careful. Dear Daniel, today you turned 5 years old. I wonder if you had a good birthday, if you got presents you wanted, if you made a wish when you blew out your candles. I hope you did. I hope all your wishes come true. I think about you every day. I hope you're happy and healthy and loved. I hope your parents tell you every day how special you are. I hope you know that giving you up was the hardest thing I ever did. But I did it because I wanted you to have the life I couldn't give you. I love you. I will always love you. Even if you never know my name, even if we never meet, I love you. Happy birthday, my sweet boy. Love, your birth mom. I read it 3 times, tears streaming down my face. This woman, this stranger who'd carried me and given me life, had loved me. She'd thought about me. She'd cared. I need to find her, I said to Grandma Rose. Will you help me? Yes, she said without hesitation. Yes, I will. We sat in that study for a long time, making plans, while in the dining room, Thanksgiving dinner grew cold and my family dealt with the aftermath of secrets finally exposed. I didn't go back to the dining room that night. I couldn't face my parents with their excuses, Kyle with his guilt, all those relatives with their pity. Grandma Rose drove me to a hotel near her house, paid for the room herself, and told me to take the time I needed. But don't take too long, she said as she left. Don't let this destroy you. Let it transform you instead. I lay in that anonymous hotel room, staring at the ceiling, holding Jennifer Hayes' letter, my birth mother's letter. I read it over and over until I had it memorized. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I couldn't think about troubled teenagers and intervention strategies when my own life had just imploded. I sat at the hotel desk with my laptop and started searching. Jennifer Hayes. Born in Connecticut, 19 years old in the year 2000. That would make her 42 now. I found several Jennifer Hayes in Connecticut on social media, but none of them seemed right. Different ages, different life, stories. I was looking for a woman who'd been a college student, who'd given up a baby for adoption, who'd had another child later. Hours passed. My phone was blowing up with calls from my parents, from Kyle, from various relatives. I ignored them all except for the texts from Grandma Rose. Take your time. I'm here when you need me. By evening, I'd hit a wall. There were too many Jennifer Hayes, and I had no way of knowing which one was mine. I need that help, I called Grandma Rose. I can't find her. There are too many possibilities. Come to my house, she said. I have something that might help in our later. I sat in her cozy living room, surrounded by photo albums and papers she'd pulled from storage. Your grandfather kept more than I knew, she explained. After he died, I found these in his safe. Information about your adoption that Richard and Margaret thought was destroyed. She handed me a folder. Inside were documents from the adoption agency, including the full names of my birth parents, Jennifer Marie Hayes and Michael Robert Stevens. Michael Stevens, I read aloud. My birth father. Your grandfather tracked him too, Grandma Rose said. He felt that someday you might need this information. There was a newspaper clipping from about 15 years ago, a small article about a local business opening Stevens Auto Repair in Hartford. The owner's photo showed a man in his early 40s with dark hair and kind eyes. He looks like you, Grandma Rose said softly. She was right. I could see it, the shape of his face, the set of his eyes. This stranger who was my biological father, I think you should start with him, Grandma Rose suggested. Men are often easier to approach about these things. Less emotional baggage. What if he doesn't want to know me? I asked. What if he's moved on? Has other kids? Doesn't want reminders of the son he gave up? Then you'll know, Grandma Rose said simply, and you'll have the closure of trying. But Daniel, what if he does want to know you? What if he's been wondering about you for 23 years, just like Jennifer has? The possibility gave me courage. 2 days later, I drove to Hartford. Stevens Auto Repair was a modest garage on the outskirts of the city. Clean, well-maintained, with several cars in the lot. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, working up the nerve to go inside. Finally, I walked through the door. A bell chimed overhead. The waiting room was small but comfortable, with magazines and a coffee maker. A woman at the front desk looked up. Hi there. Can I help you? I'm looking for Michael Stevens. He's in the back, working on a car. Can I tell him what it's about? I hesitated. It's personal. Family matter. She studied me for a moment, then picked up the phone. Mike, someone here to see you. Says it's family. A few minutes later, a man walked out from the garage bay. He was older than in the newspaper photo, with gray threading through his dark hair and lines around his eyes. But the resemblance was unmistakable. He stopped when he saw me, just stopped dead, staring. Daniel, he said, and my heart skipped. He knew my name. You know who I am. Jennifer called me yesterday. She said if a young man named Daniel came looking for me, to ... double quotes, he trailed off, looking stunned. She said to tell you she's been waiting 23 years for this day. She called you. How did she know I'd come looking? She didn't, but she's been checking the adoption registry every month for years, hoping you'd register when you turned 8. When you didn't, she thought maybe you didn't know you were adopted. But then 2 days ago, someone called the adoption agency asking for information. They called Jennifer to let her know someone was searching for her. Grandma Rose. I breathed. She must have made calls on my behalf. Michael gestured to the office behind the desk. Let's talk privately. We sat in his small office, and for a long moment, we just looked at each other. You look like your mother, he said finally. Her eyes, her expressions, but you have my build, my hands. He laughed nervously. God, this is surreal. I've imagined this moment so many times, but I never really thought it would happen. You thought about me? I asked. Every day, he said simply, especially in the early years. Jennifer and I were so young, so unprepared. Giving you up for adoption was the hardest decision we ever made, but we thought it was the right one. We thought you'd have a better life, with parents who were ready, who were stable. Did you love each other? You and Jennifer. Very much. We were together from high school. When she got pregnant, we tried to make it work. But we were 19, broke, still in college. Her parents had died in an accident when she was 16, and she was living with an aunt who could barely afford to feed herself. My parents, they weren't supportive. They wanted us to get married, give up school, start working. We didn't want that life for you. He looked down at his hands. We stayed together for about a year after you were born. But the grief of losing you, the guilt, the constant wondering if we'd made the right choice, it broke us. We split up when I was 21. Do you have other children? 2 daughters, 16 and 14. Jennifer and I both moved on, got married to other people, but we've stayed in touch over the years. Checked in occasionally. We both agreed that if you ever came looking, we'd be honest with you. Tell you everything. My adoptive parents threw away the letters Jennifer sent, I said, and I heard the bitterness in my own voice. Michael's face darkened. I'm sorry. That wasn't right. She tried so hard to make sure you knew you were loved, even from a distance. Can I meet her? Jennifer. She'd liked that. She asked me to give you a number if you wanted it. He wrote it on a piece of paper. Call her when you're ready. But Daniel, I want you to know both of us. We never forgot you. We never stopped caring. And if you want us to be part of your life now, even just a little bit, we're here. My throat was tight. I have a lot of questions. I'll answer all of them. And Daniel, I'm sorry we weren't strong enough to keep you. I'm sorry you ended up with parents who... Jennifer told me a little about what happened, about how they treated you. That's not what we wanted for you. It's not your fault, I said, and I meant it. You were kids. You did what you thought was best. We talked for 2 hours. He told me about his life, his daughters, his business. He showed me photos of my half-sister's 2 teenage girls with bright smiles who didn't know I existed yet. When would you tell them? I asked. Soon, if you want to meet them. They're good kids. They'll be excited to have a big brother. The word brother hit differently than it ever had with Kyle. When I left the garage, I sat in my car with Jennifer's phone number, staring at the digits my birth mother. The woman who'd carried me, who'd given me up, who'd tried to stay connected despite the closed adoption. I called. She answered on the second ring. Hello, Jennifer Ayes. My name is Daniel Morgan. I think I'm your son. There was a sharp intake of breath, then silence, then crying, deep, soul-wrenching sobs. Daniel, she finally managed. Oh my God, Daniel. I've been waiting so long. So long. Can we meet? I asked, my own voice breaking. Yes. Yes. Please. Whenever you want. Where are you? Hartford. I just met Michael. Mike called me right after he left. He said you were wonderful, that you looked good, healthy. I've been sitting here crying, hoping you'd call. We arranged to meet the next day at a coffee shop halfway between Hartford and where she lived in New Haven. That night, I finally returned Kyle's calls. Danny, thank God, he said when he picked up. Are you okay? Where are you? I'm fine. I'm in Hartford. I met him. My biological father. Mikhail Chivin's silence on the other end. Then, how was it? Good. Really good. I'm meeting my birth mother tomorrow. Danny, Mom and Dad are losing their minds. They want to talk to you. Explain. There's nothing to explain. Kyle, they lied to me for 23 years. They treated me like I was less than you because I wasn't biologically theirs. And they're only sorry now because they got caught. That's not fair, Kyle protested weakly. Isn't it? Think about it, Kyle, really. Think about our whole childhood. Can you honestly tell me they treated us the same? A long pause. No. I can't. I need time, I said. I need to figure out who I am, where I come from, what my real family looks like. Tell Mom and Dad I'll talk to them when I'm ready. But I'm not ready yet, okay? Kyle said quietly. But Danny, I love you. You're my brother. Nothing changes that for me. I love you too, I said, and I realized I meant it. Kyle wasn't the enemy here. He was just as much a victim of our parents' dysfunction as I was, just in a different way. The next day, I walked into that coffee shop and saw a woman sitting alone at a corner table. She was 42, with light brown hair, starting to show gray, dressed simply in jeans and a sweater, and when she looked up and saw me, her face crumpled with emotion. I walked to her table, and she stood, hands shaking. "Daniel," she whispered. "Hi, Jennifer." She reached out tentatively, as if afraid I might disappear. I stepped forward and hugged her, and she held on like she was drowning, and I was a lifeline. "I'm so sorry," she kept saying. "I'm so sorry I gave you up. I'm so sorry you suffered. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault," I said. "You did what you thought was best." We sat down, and she couldn't stop staring at me, touching my hand like she needed to make sure I was real. "You're so handsome," she said through tears. "You look like Mike, but with my coloring. And you're so tall. I always wondered what you'd look like grown up." "Tell me about the day I was born," I said. And she did. She told me everything. The pregnancy, the labor, the 2 days she'd spent with me before the adoption was finalized, the agony of signing the papers, of handing me to Richard and Margaret and walking away. "I held you for hours," she said. "I memorized your face, your tiny fingers, the way you made little sounds when you slept. I wanted to remember everything because I thought it might be the only time I'd ever get to hold my son." "You wrote me letters? They told you?" She looked surprised. "I thought your parents destroyed them all." "They did, except for one my grandmother saved." I pulled it from my wallet I'd been carrying it everywhere. The one for my 5th birthday. Jennifer took it with shaking hands, reading words she'd written 18 years ago. "I meant every word. I've thought about you every single day, every birthday, every holiday, every milestone. I wondered if you were happy, if you felt loved, if you were okay." I wasn't, I said honestly. They never told me I was adopted. I grew up feeling like I didn't belong, like something was wrong with me. They favored my brother, their biological son, over me in every way. Jennifer's face twisted with pain. "Oh, Daniel, I'm so sorry. That's not what I wanted for you. When we chose them, they seemed perfect. Stable, loving, established. The agencies said they were ideal parents. They were ideal for their biological child," I said. "Just not for me." We talked for 4 hours. She told me about her life, her daughter, my half-sister, Emily, who was 16 and apparently very excited to meet me. "Can I ask you something?" I said as we were getting ready to leave. "Why did you call Michael when you found out I was searching? You're married to someone else now, right?" "I am. And my husband knows all about you. He's supportive of us connecting. But Mike is your father. He deserved to know you were looking for us. And honestly, despite everything that happened between us, Mike and I have always agreed on one thing. We wanted you to have both of us if you ever came looking. We wanted you to know you came from love, even if we were too young to know what to do with it." As we parted ways in the parking lot, Jennifer hugged me again. "Thank you for finding me," she said. "Thank you for giving me a chance to know you. I know I don't deserve it after giving you up, Stub," I said gently. "You were 19, alone, doing the best you could, and you tried to stay connected. It wasn't your fault they kept us apart." "Can we stay in touch?" she asked hopefully. "Maybe meet again?" "I'd like that," I said. "I'd like to meet Emily too, if she wants." "She does? She's been asking about you nonstop since I told her I had a sister." A sister who wanted to know me. The thought was overwhelming and wonderful at the same time. 3 months after that disastrous Thanksgiving dinner, my life looked completely different. I'd met Emily, my 16-year-old half-sister, who turned out to be funny and smart and nothing like Victoria. She'd accepted me immediately. No hesitation, no judgment, just genuine excitement at having an older brother. Michael's daughters, 12-year-old Sophie and 14-year-old Maya, had been just as welcoming. Suddenly, I had 3 younger sisters who texted me constantly, sent me memes, asked for advice about school and friends and life. I was building relationships with my biological parents too. Jennifer and I met for coffee once a week. She was teaching me about my heritage, or Irish and Italian background. Family stories I'd never heard, recipes passed down through generations. Michael taught me about cars. I'd never been mechanically inclined, but spending Saturday afternoons at his garage, learning how engines worked, felt like connecting to a part of myself I'd never known existed. But the hardest part was figuring out what to do about Richard and Margaret. They'd tried reaching out repeatedly. Calls, texts, emails, even showing up at my apartment once. I'd refused to engage. The hurt was too deep, too raw. Grandma Rose had been my intermediary, passing along messages, updating me on family drama. Apparently, the Thanksgiving revelation had sent shockwaves through the extended family. Some relatives had taken my side, criticizing Richard and Margaret for their treatment of me. Others defended them, saying adoption was complicated. Carl had been he'd called weekly, never pushing, just letting me know he was there. He'd even started seeing a therapist to work through his own guilt and confusion about our family dynamics. I'm realizing Mom and Dad messed me up too, he admitted during one call, just in different ways. They put so much pressure on me to be perfect, to represent the family well, to validate their parenting, and I internalized that so deeply that I never questioned how they treated you. I'm sorry, Danny, I know, I said. And I'm sorry I made you the villain. You were just a kid too. We were slowly rebuilding our relationship, but it was different now. More honest, less competitive. Victoria, Kyle's fiancée, had postponed their wedding indefinitely. The scandal of family secrets revealed at Thanksgiving had made her take a hard look at the Morgans, and apparently she wasn't sure she wanted to marry into this dysfunction. On a cold February afternoon, Grandma Rose called me. It's time, she said simply. Time for what? Time to face your parents. They need to make amends, and you need closure. I've arranged for everyone to meet at my house tomorrow. Just family you, Kyle, Richard, Margaret, and me. My first instinct was to refuse, but, Grandma Rose continued, you don't have to forgive them, Daniel, but you need to tell them how their choices affected you. They need to hear it, and you need to say it. Otherwise, this will fester inside you forever. She was right. I knew she was right. The next day, I drove to Grandma Rose's house, my stomach in knots. Kyle's car was already there, and my parents' SUV pulled up right after me. We gathered in her living room, the same room where she'd given me Jennifer's letter months ago. The atmosphere was thick with tension. Rich and Margaret looked older, worn down. Mom's hair had more gray than I remembered. Dad's shoulders sagged in a way that was new. Thank you for coming, Grandma Rose said, taking charge. We're here because this family needs healing, and healing requires truth. Rich and Margaret, you need to hear how your choices affected Daniel. And Daniel, they need to apologize properly, not with excuses, but with genuine accountability. She looked at my parents. You first. My father cleared his throat. Daniel, your mother and I have spent the past 3 months in therapy trying to understand where we went wrong. And we've come to realize that we let our own issues damage you. Issues? I said flatly. My mother spoke up, her voice small. After Kyle was born, there were complications, internal injuries. That meant I couldn't carry another pregnancy. The doctor said adoption was our only option if we wanted a second child. She twisted her hands together. I wanted a second child. I wanted to be the kind of person who could love an adopted baby as much as my biological son. But Daniel, I'm ashamed to say I struggled. Every time I looked at you, I was reminded of my own body's failure. And that wasn't fair to you. It was never fair to you. So you punished me for it, I said. For 23 years, you made me pay for your grief. Yes, she admitted, tears streaming down her face. And I'm so sorry. You deserved better. You deserved a mother who could love you without reservation. And I failed you. My father continued. I saw what was happening. I saw how Margaret treated you differently than Kaya, but I didn't stop it because I was afraid of making things worse. Afraid of losing my marriage, of splitting up the family. So I stayed silent, and that silence hurt you just as much as her actions. He looked at me with genuine anguish. You said at Thanksgiving that I raised you out of guilt, not love, and I've been thinking about that. There was guilt, yes, but there was also love. Daniel, maybe not expressed the way you needed, maybe not as strongly as I loved Kyle, but it was there. That's not good enough, I said. Loving someone maybe not as strongly as their sibling isn't love, it's obligation with affection. You're right, he said simply. And I don't know how to fix that. I don't know how to undo 23 years of damage. You can't, I said. You can't undo it. You can only acknowledge it and let me decide if I want any kind of relationship with you moving forward, Kyle spoke up. Danny, I've been thinking a lot about our childhood, about all the ways Mom and Dad favored me, the better gifts, the bigger celebrations, the constant praise. I took it all for granted because I didn't know any different. But now I see how messed up it was. He looked at our parents. You taught me that I was more important than my brother, that my achievements mattered more, that my needs came first. And that damaged me too, even if differently than it damaged Danny. I grew up entitled and oblivious, never questioning my privilege. We're sorry, my mother said again. We're so sorry, Daniel. If we could go back and do it differently, but you can't, I interrupted. You can't go back. So the question is, what happens now? Silence fell over the room. I've been seeing Jennifer, I said, and Michael, my biological parents. And you know what I realized? They gave me up because they loved me, because they wanted me to have a better life than they could provide at night. They sacrificed their relationship with me for what they thought was best for me. I looked at Richard and Margaret. You kept me because it fulfilled your need for a second child, and then you resented me for not being what you wanted me to be. That's not love. That's selfishness. My mother flinched, but she didn't argue. But I continued. Jennifer and Michael also taught me something else. They taught me that people can be flawed and make terrible mistakes and still deserve a chance at redemption. They were kids who made the best choice they could with limited options. You were adults who made bad choices despite having every advantage. I took a breath. I don't know if I can forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I'm willing to try to understand you. To see you as flawed people who damaged me without fully realizing what they were doing. That's more than we deserve, my father said. Maybe? But it's also what I need. I need to know you're genuinely sorry. I need to see you making changes. Not just saying words. I need time to heal without you pressuring me for reconciliation. What can we do? My mother asked. To prove we're serious about changing. Therapy, I said. Individual and family. Real work. Not just a few sessions to check a box. And acknowledgement. When you see Kyle, when you talk about your sons, you need to acknowledge how differently you treated us. You need to own it publicly, not just in this room. We can do that, my father said. And one more thing, I added. I want the full story of my adoption. Every detail, the agency's contact information, any documents you still have, anything that might help me understand where I came from. We'll get you everything, he promised. Grandma Rose nodded approvingly. This is a start. A good start. But Daniel's right, this is going to take time and real work. No shortcuts. No sweeping things under the rug. Over the next few months, we all did the work. Richard and Margaret went to therapy, both individual and couples counseling. Kyle and I went to sessions together to work through our complicated sibling dynamics, and slowly, painfully, we started to build something new. It wasn't the same as before. It never would be. But it was more honest. My parents acknowledged their failures, not just to me, but to the extended family. At Easter dinner, my father stood up and gave a speech about how they treated me unfairly, how they were working to do better. It was uncomfortable and awkward, and several relatives didn't know how to respond, but it mattered. The public acknowledgement mattered. Kyle and I developed our own relationship, separate from our parents. We started meeting for basketball games, grabbing dinner, texting about random things. He asked about my biological family without jealousy, genuinely interested in my new relationships, and I introduced him to Jennifer and Michael. They were cautious at first, not sure how to interact with the brother who'd gotten the life they'd wanted for me. But Kyle won them over with his sincerity and his genuine efforts to support me. You're a good brother, Jennifer told Kyle one day when we all met for lunch. Daniel's lucky to have you. Kyle's eyes got wet. I'm the lucky one. He's giving me a second chance I don't deserve. 1 year after that Thanksgiving dinner, we gathered again at my parents' house. But this Chimi, it was different. Jennifer was there with her husband and Emily. Michael came with his wife and daughters. Kyle brought Victoria. They'd finally gotten married in a small ceremony. Grandma Rose presided over everything with satisfied approval. Two families connected by me, learning to coexist. It was awkward at moments. Richard and Margaret clearly felt uncomfortable around Jennifer and Michael, knowing these were the people who'd given me what they'd failed to provide unconditional acceptance. But everyone made an effort. At dinner end this time, there were plenty of seats for everyone. My father stood up to make a toast. A year ago, this family nearly fell apart, he began. Secrets that should have been told decades ago came out in the worst possible way, and Daniel suffered for our mistakes. He looked at me. I'm grateful that you're giving us a chance to do better, to be better. You could have walked away and never looked back, and no one would have blamed you. But you stayed, and you pushed us to face our failures. He turned to Jennifer and Michael. And I'm grateful to both of you for being gracious enough to share Daniel with us, despite how we've hurt him. You're good people, and he's lucky to have you. Jennifer smiled, though her eyes were wet. We're all lucky to have him. After dinner, I found myself on the back patio with Kyle. We stood in comfortable silence, looking out at the yard where we'd played as kids. Do you remember when we built that tree? Kai asked, pointing to the old oak tree. You built it. I was just allowed to watch and hand you nails. Kyle winced. Yeah, that was messed up. I should have insisted you help. We were kids. You didn't know better. But I do now, Kyle said, and I want you to know you're my brother. My real brother. Not because of blood or legal documents, but because we've chosen each other. Through all this mess, we've chosen to build a real relationship. That matters more than biology. I felt my throat tightened. Yeah, it does. And Danny, thank you for not giving up on me, on us. You could have just embraced your biological family and said, screw the Morgans. But you didn't. Because family is complicated, I said. It's not either or. It's both. And I can love Jennifer and Michael and my new siblings while also rebuilding something with you and even with Mom and Dad. They're different relationships, but they can all exist. When did you get so wise? Kyla asked with a slight smile. Therapy. Lots of therapy. We both laughed. And it felt good. Natural. Like brothers who actually knew each other. Later that night, as people were leaving, Jennifer pulled me aside. Thank you for including us, she said. I know it's not easy, navigating between two families. You're not two separate families anymore, I said. You're all just ... family. Complicated and messy, but family. Your grandfather would be proud of you, Grandma Rose said, joining us. He always said family wasn't about perfection. It was about showing up and doing the work, even when it's hard. I hugged her tight. Thank you for telling the truth when no one else would. For giving me that letter. For everything. You did the hard part, she said. You took that truth and built something beautiful from it. As I drove home that night, I thought about the year that had passed, about the pain and anger and confusion, about the discoveries and connections and healing. My parents had given me the only seat at the table, leaving me standing, making me feel invisible. But Grandma had revealed the truth, and that truth had set me free. Free to find my biological parents who'd loved me enough to let me go. Free to rebuild relationships with Richard and Margaret based on honesty instead of lies. Free to develop a real brotherhood with Kyle. Free to discover 3 new sisters who accepted me immediately. Free to understand that family isn't about biology or perfection or living up to expectations. Family is about choosing each other again and again, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. I'd spent 23 years feeling like I didn't belong anywhere. But now, I belonged everywhere. With Jennifer and Michael, with my new siblings, with Kyle, even with Richard and Margaret as we slowly rebuilt trust. I belonged because I'd chosen to belong. Because I'd done the hard work of healing. Because I'd refused to let their lies define me. My name is Daniel Morgan. I'm adopted. I have 2 fathers, 2 mothers, 1 brother, and 3 sisters. I have a complicated, messy, beautiful family that's nothing like what I thought it would be, and I've never felt more at home in my entire life.